Welcome everybody, and thank you for joining us in the first in our series of the Incubeta Ignite forecasting for 2021. I'm delighted to be welcomed here by Jessica Jacobs, the Strategy Director for Europe at Incubeta, who has kicked off our forecasting series with a really strong contribution to our written forecasting. And Jessica, I'm really looking forward to getting to some of these details with you further. Before we do, I'm keen to share via your perspective on your 7 years with Incubeta. So let's start with that, and then I'm going to ask you what your predictions are for 2021.
Yeah. So, I mean, my predictions really ties into, I would say, my background. Coming from a software development background where for about 6 years, I was predominantly just focusing on technologies within the digital marketing side, specifically on social media. And that started bridging into more innovative solutions in the digital marketing side that is really closely tying into dynamic creative. So going into what I really see as a strong prediction piece for next year is I see that more and more advertisers will continue to focus on the requirement for dynamic creative to be part of their strategies. It's, again, not an old topic. It's something that I think has just received a lot more power now that we're all kind of homebound and we're really reliant to being connected on the internet.
So have you seen any trends in Q4 that have accelerated through 2020 that you foresee to be going into 2021 that will stay with us, particularly in that area of dynamic creative that you spoke about?
Absolutely. I think that what we've realized is that whilst very little planning could help kind of forecast what we went into in 2020, is towards the end of the year, marketers really had the requirement to understand their audiences better. They weren't seeing them come to their stores anymore. They had to actually extract this information online, and they had to tailor now what was always beautifully done in brick and mortar stores onto online. So in the end of Q4, which has been an exciting year for us, we've really seen large brands reaching out to us to say, can you help solve this solution? But not only solve it in one market necessarily, but even at a global scale, because this now needs to resonate everywhere. It's not something that impacts just one market.
So in 2020, have you seen more brands working on a more global basis, or have they hunkered down into their local markets? And do you think that's going to change how they work in 2021 as we go forward?
It's actually very interesting. It's a shift that I did not see coming. At first, there was always, of course, there was always this market level approach. And I think what data has taught us over the last few years, and specifically in 2020, is that consumers are more connected. And it wasn't just by different devices from mobile to web, but it was also in different countries. And now I'm actually seeing brands really start making this connection where they have a global strategy that has got a local narrative. So I think more and more we're going to see that start happening.
Interesting. Now, of course, we've spoken about this narrative for a long time, but the budgets haven't always been there, particularly for digital creative. Yeah. What's your forecast for the year ahead in terms of budgets? Are brands really going to take digital creative seriously and put budgets towards them?
So a very interesting conversation, of course. We've always seen this siloed approach where, there was media and there's creative and technology, and dynamic creative is truly the first time where there is a very visual representation of where media, creative, and technology have to work together. And it's not a case of who gets which percentage of budgets anymore. It's absolutely a cohesive story. So one of the things I've seen happening, it's not even a case of brands trying to find budget for this. They have now essentially actually said this must have budget. Right. There is value in making sure that your creatives perform well and that they tie into your media campaign. So it's not that they're actually even shifting, they're just doing better allocations.
Good. And where's that budget going to come from?
So it's quite interesting. I think there is different approaches happening from different type of verticals, definitely. I think what we will definitely see is a big shift where we were, of course, trying to get marketers to go or consumers to go in store. there is no choice around that anymore. The activities that we spend on doing advertising, I would say, out of home will definitely start shifting into digital, because that's where you're going to find them now. You're going to find your consumers sitting at home in front of the TV, constantly on their mobile devices. We've almost all kind of been forced into this corner where if we didn't know that digital was important before, we definitely know it now.
Yeah, very interesting. And you spoke a little bit about, people are at home more, connected to connected TVs more. We're seeing, of course, a bit of a trend in that direction. What are your predictions for CTV and creative? Will it become a CTV first creative experience, or will we still be taking analog TV creatives and adapting them?
So I think that definitely, as always, the trend kind of starts in the US, right? We're seeing more and more of the clients that we're working with in the US have connected TV line items as part of their schedule. So now the first question is, will there be enough inventory available to start buying this dynamically as well?
Yeah.
One of the things I definitely saw coming in Q4 was not just dynamic creative. Immediately they assumed, because we could solve the dynamic creative component just on image assets, can we solve this for video? So this is already something that I see by the first quarter, the second quarter of next year will be a massive topic for everyone to solve. And it will be on the component on, can you solve the innovation around building a solution? And is there enough inventory available? And I know it's something that Google's also really focused on, and making sure there's enough inventory in all the markets.
Yeah, interesting. Jess, you spoke about your background being in software development and technology. I'm curious to know what your views are on what technologies do you see now enabling us to solve the problems that were previously unsolvable, whether that be cloud or something else?
Yes, so I would say it really depends on which type of platform we're trying to solve, of course, right? The one biggest challenge, of course, in digital is the fact that there are so many technologies. There's different technologies when it comes to languages. There's different browsers where people are actually using. And in that, you almost always need to find a solution that works for all of them. One of the biggest ones that we're, of course, seeing is the trend in terms of dynamic creative in the social space, and there's a trend in dynamic creative in the space of Google. What we have done is that we've really tried to see ourselves sitting as a solution on top of that. Nothing that kind of cannibalizes the ecosystem that already exists. And we're definitely moving towards more cloud-based technologies and essentially just plugging in a user interface as a front end, a friendly to use UI that makes it so much more easier for people to bridge that gap. Because we also know that technology can run ahead from most of us, where we're not even staying up to date with what we need to. So we're essentially there as that solution provider. We're coming in the middle to create these cloud-based solutions with friendly user interfaces that makes it really easy to get access to these new technologies coming in.
And will those people that you spoke about be marketers in businesses, in advertisers, who'll be using the product that you're very familiar with and being central to the development of, which is Seamless Creative? Is it the marketers who are hands-on who'll be able to have more access to that dynamic creative capability?
Absolutely. So first and foremost, we sit in the space where we want marketers to feel more empowered. Of course, we want to make sure that in between that, there's always an agency relationship. So Seamless Creative, the power that it actually adds in is this workflow. Because you have to have these silos, creative teams, media teams, technical teams now work together. The last thing that you want to do is, again, give them platforms where they're essentially in their own different pods, and now they all still have to pull them together. So Seamless Creative is this workflow. It's owned by marketers, but agencies essentially now can manage it alongside their marketers a lot more closely. And that's really been the forefront of one of the USPs that we've been going in with.
Right. Right. Switching gears a little bit, there's a lot of concern, of course, and support of the privacy regulations and those getting tied to, and the impact on cookies and the impact of that on personalization. How are you thinking about that?
So it's definitely been something that we've had to keep on top of mind, right? So it's a curve that's coming. So there's two ways to look at it. One is capitalize as much as possible at the moment, because now what you're looking for is essentially first-party audiences. The best way to get the best ones out of them is to be more relevant, get the consumers that convert and make them your first-party audiences. moving a little bit ahead, assuming that now we are in this era where we don't have this information, contextual advertising will become a lot more important, meaning that one of the strategies that we always include as kind of seen as this will protect you, it's future-proof, is a contextual strategy, templates that are designed, available in Seamless Creative to cover that component. One of the interesting things, of course, and this is the part where we innovate a little bit more, is what comes after that. How can we help our advertisers essentially now still have that feeling of personalization, yet we don't really have all that information? And that's where I actually have to take you 5 years back. In the age where we were doing persona targeting, we were all creating these little slides where we said, these are my ideal audiences, and this is essentially the tone that I will be using. But now, using that way of thinking, something that we're very familiar with, we can take our current technology, which is machine learning, and plug in a much more smarter solution that actually changes and models these personas as I get to know more and more of the audiences that do end up going to my site. So essentially, it's a great way for us to tap into what we knew and just to innovate it a little bit more with new technologies in this day and age.
Right, very good. Sounds like you're very ready, but a lot of work at hand to navigate the challenges ahead. There were a lot of challenges this year, most of those unexpected. What was the one that surprised you the most in a positive sense?
So in a positive sense, I would definitely say in the beginning of the year, when we, of course, were just hit by COVID, everyone was kind of pulling their spends, and there was big challenges around, should I still be spending? What should happen? And I think there was this curve that essentially happened when they said, you should be spending more. And what was really interesting to see is that advertisers that usually take long decisions before they start spending those type of budgets quickly reacted to it. Mm-hmm. So that to me was a positive change. It showcased to us that even the largest of clients or advertisers can move faster than what they usually do. And I think that's made us a lot more adaptable, which is why we're seeing all topics like dynamic creative become so important again, because now they're a lot more daring. They're willing to take on things that in the past almost was a big hurdle to cross.
Right, so agility then really kind of came to the fore, and really won out through that. So looking ahead to 2021, whilst we can't predict the unexpected, what are you most looking forward to? What excites you about 2021 and what's coming from what you can predict?
Look, I'm definitely excited in terms of the type of advertisers that we really are seeing coming to us to help solve these challenges. We're really getting to know a really deep part of their business. It's a visual part, it's a data-driven part. So for me, it's taking on some really exciting projects with Hyundai and L'Oreal, and of course, especially continuing work that we've already been doing with the Zalando team. These are all things that will continue in Q1 and Q2. And I think we're just going to continue seeing this innovative approach that we've been working on for such a long time be in the center stage.
And not to end on a negative at all, but do you have any fears for 2021 that we really need to be aware of as marketers?
Yes, I mean, I think there's, of course, this fear that always comes with how do we make this transition back? What happens when all of a sudden we all do start going outside again and stores are essentially where we go to? Do we see ourselves actually crippling our own industry where we then say, well, actually now I can stop everything that we're doing on digital and just go back to what we're doing, versus seeing that this was beneficial, that this can live alongside an offline strategy and amplify your business even more. So my fear is that they don't lose touch with the significant impact that digital has, and that we continue on this trend.
Okay, so a personal question. When the world opens up again, where are you most looking forward to traveling to?
Geez, there's so many options. To be honest, at first I would have said probably anywhere with a beautiful beach where I can just sit and have cocktails all day. But to be very honest, of course, there's a brutal impact on COVID, which is those of us who live really far away from our families don't really get to see them. So for me, it's definitely heading back home to South Africa just to go visit my family and friends.
Very good. No, I think that's a very good and pertinent point to end on, and I hope that comes sooner rather than later for you and for your family. So we're going to end there. Jessica, thank you very much for your contribution to the written article on our Incubeta Europe forecast for 2021. Great to bring that to life in this forum, so really appreciate you taking the time to share those with us. We've got 5 more to come, so please do add your comments in below. We'll keep you informed when the follow-ons are coming. Keep an eye on the blog, on the incubeta.com website, and we look forward to sharing with you other perspective across other areas of digital marketing in 2021. So thank you very much for your time. Jessica, thank you for your time, and look forward to seeing you all again soon.